Hello and welcome to Don't Feed the Geeks, presented by the Long Island Comic Guys, the masters of the geeky verse. Welcome back, Geek Freaks. We hope you're all staying safe and healthy and all that good stuff, social distancing. I'm TC here, joined tonight by JJ.
What up, Rebel Scum? It still doesn't sound right.
And Toy Story.
What's up, everyone?
But nothing? Just that?
What does Buzz Lightyear say that I can introduce myself with?
You know what? It's so
Infinity and Beyond. Just do that.
It's so awkward to say something.
I have a snake in my boot.
There's a snake in my boot.
I prefer that.
Okay, fine, I'll do that.
So I guess
JJ, all you gotta do is what up, Rebel Scum.
What up, Rebel Scum? That's it. Yeah. So again,
you don't have to plural. I don't think scum. Can you do the plural of scum? I don't think you can.
I don't know.
Scum is multiple.
I'll look that up.
It's like deer.
Wow.
Well, again, we got off track as usual. We have an awesome interview coming up later with Ali from Elite Comics 11. You know, he does a lot of stuff on Instagram. He runs some Facebook pages as well, but really cool, interesting interview, kind of very different from anything we've done before. He goes into, you know, all the different, you know, services they offer, you know, consignment, selling, pressing, grading. He's doing this awesome thing called the Remedy Tour. For all of you who aren't aware of it, we'll go into it later. He has a great event coming up with Neil Adams that just passed this past Saturday, but you'll still be able to get involved even if you missed it. But before we get to Ali, we're going to jump into the Geek Beat, and Toy Story is going to take us away with the snake in his boot.
With the snake in my boot. I should watch Toy Story while I'm home. All right, so I think the biggest thing, or the first thing that I saw since our last episode, is that the Long Island Comic Guy sticker.
What?
Never mind.
People not getting this. So what are we doing?
All right. So obviously a lot of movies canceled because of COVID-19. We got the first release date for one of the biggest ones, Black Widow. It's going to be coming out in November now. November 6th to be precise.
Okay.
So that's just one of a bunch that have been canceled that's been rescheduled so far. I think we're still waiting on the new James Bond movie, No Time to Die. No, that might have one already. I think it's coming out like next April though, like way far.
Well, did you hear that, JJ? I didn't. I missed what he said.
He said, "No, I heard him. It was the James Bond next April."
Oh, okay. I don't know. For some reason, it didn't come through on my phone. Sorry.
So basically,
full disclosure, guys.
All these big movies have been just basically pushed out, right? I mean, so really, all I thought that I've known is the James Bond flick and the Black Widow. Was there anything else?
Wonder Woman.
Oh, Wonder Woman.
I believe that's coming out in August now.
Okay.
So it's interesting that they're all like coming out now vastly different times. You know, you had these movies that were all supposed to come out within the few months, but now we have August, November, and then next April.
Are you sure of that? I would double check the Wonder Woman thing. I think it might have got pushed to next year.
Check right now.
Really? Next year?
But
that seems a little crazy.
JJ, why don't you talk about something?
August 14th.
August 14th.
According to Wikipedia.
Still August 14th? Oh, maybe my sources have failed me. I apologize.
So, yeah.
All right. Well,
crazy.
I mean, you know, between stuff that I think we've also heard that stuff's going to go to Disney Plus and straight to streaming. And it's not just Disney stuff. I think other companies are doing this as well. I don't know the movies off the top of my head because most of the stuff I watch is superhero related. So, because I'm a child.
It's interesting because, like, how long can they keep these movies in the can for?
Yeah.
You know, like just ready to go almost.
I think that, you know, I know it was announced last week that Disney Plus was going to take one of their movies that was supposed to come out in May. It's called Artemis
Fowl.
Artemis Fowl. Looks really cool. It's one of those, I don't know.
It's based on books from, I read them when I was a kid. It's like a big series of books.
Yeah, I've never heard of them. So, you know, they're taking this movie now. They're just going to drop it on Disney Plus instead of releasing it in the theaters, which is a pretty cool idea. I think this might be a great test bed for more movies to be just to push to stream because everybody's home right now and they're going to lose money anyway. So
yeah, you're right.
Might as well push it out to these streaming services and see how well they do. If it's a big budget,
I think it depends on the movie though,
right?
If it's like the big movies like Black Widow and stuff, they're not going to do that for.
Right. I mean, they would lose a ton of money to do that, but these little ones,
they'd be foregoing like $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that Star Wars got released early digitally to buy, but I'm not buying that. Do we know when it's going to come out on Disney Plus?
I think they're still...
I know you bought it, JJ. You bought it, right, JJ?
I bought it digitally when it came out, the day it came out. I have yet to still watch it though. That's what the funny thing is. I bought it, but have not watched it yet.
They know a sucker when they see it.
And it's crazy. What I've watched from the time that came out to now, I've watched Endgame. I've watched the Avenger flicks. I've watched Captain Marvel, which I'm gonna say this is the second time I've seen Captain Marvel. I saw it in the theater once with you guys, and I kind of ripped it apart. Didn't really like it. Watched it a second time last week. I enjoyed it. Weird.
Is it because like you knew what you were watching now?
I don't know. Maybe, but I actually enjoyed it. It was I paid attention to it a little bit better. I don't know what it was, but I actually enjoyed watching it. I don't know. Maybe with the other movies, with everything all done, it made more sense. I don't know. I liked it.
I've watched it a few times, and it's not that so I don't dislike the movie. I don't know why we're going into this.
I know. That was my fault. Sorry.
I still don't think it was as good a performance from her as it could have been from someone else.
We've rehashed that. I'm just saying that, I watched it a sec, but my main point was, Star Wars came out 2 weeks ago. I bought the damn thing. Still haven't watched it, but I've watched other movies between that I've seen a half dozen times.
I would love for them to release it on Disney Plus before you get a chance to watch it at this point.
Yeah, that would probably happen.
Knowing your luck.
For real.
So they also didn't Disney Plus, they also pushed back the TV shows, right? So they pushed back Winter Soldier. All that's been pushed now, even though it's done, right?
Yeah, which is interesting. I guess because it relies on the movie schedule too, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. Like, why else would they push back shows that are going to be released at home? Anyway?
Well, I'm so confused now because I thought Winter Soldier was getting moved up, but I thought Scarlet Witch's show was getting pushed back.
Oh, see, I heard the opposite.
I know for sure they said WandaVision was very closely linked to the next Doctor Strange movie. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
The Captain America and Falcon one, I don't know. I've been hearing a lot of rumblings of like some major characters coming from that, and I don't know if maybe it's linked to Black Widow. I think they're saying that Taskmaster might make an appearance in Captain America, but again, that's complete and wild rumor. I don't know if it's true at all, but that was something that I heard. So that could be a reason why it's getting pushed.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, that's all I got. You guys got anything?
Well, I was going to bring up that so apparently there's going to be a remastered version of, and again, I got this information from the Spawn expert, Jimbo Slice, remastered version of like the 1995 Spawn line of toys. Todd McFarlane did a Kickstarter for it. His goal was $100,000, and I think he's inching ever close to 500,000 raised so far. And I haven't even gone into like the different categories and stuff that you get from this Kickstarter because God forbid there's art available in there. I don't trust myself to go and look to see how much you can put in. Although I'm sure if there was art, it's already gone if he's raised $500,000.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
Just, the Todd father striking again.
That is. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, it's $554,000. 4,000.
Wow. So it's already passed since like an hour ago.
And this just started. This is 29 days left to go. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So this is he wants to remaster the original figures. Wow. You know what's funny is I had some of the original ones, and I think I donated them when I moved back to New York. It's horrible.
Somebody made a killing on those. Did you have them in the box?
No, I didn't. And I had the Spawn where it had the fabric cape, and the cape flung out. And this was a beautiful piece. It was one of my favorites, and I think I donated it because I was just cleaning out, moving back.
I mean, with anything else, some of the loose stuff is still worth money. Like the guy, Matt, have you ever seen the Spawn movie from the 90s?
No.
There's a character that John Leguizamo plays on it. I think it's the Violator. And
the Violator.
I'm not a huge Spawn guy, but his version when he turns into the Violator from the clown, I think just a loose figure of that is still worth a decent amount of money.
So his projects, there's no it's all autographed figures, so there's no art whatsoever, and it starts anywhere from $1 to the most expensive is $160. So the $160 get your 3-pack Spawn trilogy and 2 new heads, and they're signed and they're hand signed autographed from Todd McFarlane. So
that is crazy. That the highest level of donate of whatever backing you can do is only $160,
yep.
And he's at 500,
and he's got
already over 500.
He's got 2,000 backers for that. So 2,000 backers at $160. He's got 36 backers for the $80, which is an autographed artist proof of Spawn. Really, majority of his backers are the 160. His next tier is the $40, which is just a classic Spawn, a 7-inch figure. He's got 1,300 backers on that one. That's for $40.
That's awesome.
So that's amazing.
To be honest with you, the prices are not bad. $40 for a 7-inch action figure, not bad. To be honest with you,
I'm glad you went through it because none of that interests me, so I don't have to worry now.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the lowest tier to get his autograph is $80. So you get an autographed classic Spawn. So for $80, you get a Todd McFarlane autograph on a Spawn figure. I mean, that's pretty good. If you can't get his signature other way, it's a cheap way of getting it.
Yeah, for real.
Sure. I mean, it's not a comic book, so.
No, but I mean, he's got a pretty big following on his Spawn stuff. So I mean, it's.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean,
I can see that. I could see that going to $1 million.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
it's going to, for sure. I'm going to go over.
Yeah, within the next couple days. I'm going to say in the next 5 days, it's going to be at $1 million. Over $1 million. He's
going to make a profit on those figures before he even sells one.
If he's only asking for $100,000, that's crazy.
It's not what I was going to say, though. It's so funny how you can have blinders on when you're a collector to only the things you're into. And then you don't even realize there's this whole other segment of people who are interested in that.
Dude, I'm exactly like that.
Yeah, Spawn. I'm not into it, but there's so many people into Spawn. There's so many people into Lady Death, and even for you, you're into the monster and horror stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Toy Story, and it's just nobody buys that stuff. They're no, a ton of people buy it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Buy it. I didn't even know if there was any news in that from this Geek Beat. Do we have anything else?
Hey man, as much news as you could get from everybody sitting home.
We haven't been out in the wild, guys. Full disclosure, we can't even do this in JJ's
basement.
Studio basement. We're doing this remotely from our given location. So if you hear any lack of quality in sound, that's the biggest culprit of why that's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think that's it for me on what if you want to call that a Geek Beat.
Yeah, it's with everything going on with this whole virus. I mean, you're not even getting your new comic book, so everything's pretty much shut down anyway. It's pathetic. It's just going to get.
I mean, I am thankful that they're doing that for the comic book shop because it would be bad news. I think if they released them,
they'd be in the hole for a lot of money if otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. But I did have a great idea, though, and I really wish they did. And I mean, I did slightly steal this. I heard somebody talking about, Marvel and DC should team up to do a crossover. And, for whoever follows our page, they've already read this. But I think a great idea would be actually to do that, but make it not like how they did with those other ones where they were one-offs. They should make it like a major event. like all the comic book characters from both sides get involved. All the heavy hitters. I mean, you can have like almost like heroes in like a crisis type crossover.
Mm-hmm.
But you have this big bad, almost like the Anti-Monitor, but who's never showed up before. And in the future, maybe a couple years from now he shows up in Marvel. A couple more years later he shows up in DC. But making him a continuity, so it's a valuable book.
So make this something that happens during this.
What's that?
Make this like something
100% not, because you don't want it to be about COVID and
I was going to ask
people
you.
want to escape from that. I was like, so
sorry, I mean that it would release during this whole thing while everyone's home.
Yeah, so you'd have them available digitally. I mean, it's probably too late, but then when they release them, like once this crisis is over, you release them, but do like Detective Comics, like Action Comics 1000, like type variants for them, and you get like huge.
That would work.
You get Snyder, you get Bendis, you get Aaron, Soul, all the big people, all the big artists
on both sides.
Have them get involved. I mean, what's that?
On both sides.
On both sides.
I mean, that's a great idea.
100%. I wish I could get in front of the right people. I mean, at this point, it would take. The crisis might be over by the time they got it on the floor, but I think if they thought about it right away, Marvel, DC, you can hire me as a consultant in the future. All right, I think we've ranted for long enough, but people still push that out there from our Instagram page at Don't Feed the Geeks. So maybe it'll happen still.
Maybe we can get it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. We know people. We're growing. Long Island Comic Guy. All right, so we have our two main points at Long Island Comic Guys. We just hit 1,500 plus. It's took a while to get there. We're over 1,500. We're slowly growing still on Don't Feed the Geeks. We need to shore up the content there, but we'll do that in the end of the segments. We'll talk more about that. But let's get to Ali and from Elite Comics 11. Awesome interview, guys. I really think you're going to enjoy this.
All right, everybody, welcome. And today we're going to be interviewing the Elite of Elite Comics 11 on Instagram, as you may know him. We welcome Ali. How's it going, Ali?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome.
All right, so for those of you that don't know, Ali runs Elite Comics 11, which is an Instagram page dedicated to comic book buying, selling, and trading. Mostly consignments too, right, Ali?
Yeah, we've really got to the point where it's mostly consignments nowadays.
Nice. And I saw today you guys got 11,000 followers, right?
Yeah, we just hit that fresh off the press.
That's insane. Congratulations.
Nice.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Very cool.
Awesome. All right, so before we get into that, what we like to do for our guests is get a little origin story, we like to call it. So how you got into geek culture or comic books or whatever that may be. So if you want to get into a little of that.
Sure. So my origin story, as it were, in comics is, I've always been a comic book fan. When I was growing up, it was most of my comics were like early 90s, like Jim Lee, X-Men kind of stuff. They produced a bunch of them, but they're awesome. And that's what I grew up on. And that's kind of what my means were growing up. Flash forward a little bit when I got a career, at least my first career. I'm a lawyer, and I got, a little bit of extra money. And, the first thing you want to do is maybe recreate and relive your childhood or get things you couldn't get. So I got, I have stocks and stuff like that. But at some point I was like, hey, can I do like an alternate fund investment or such? So I started picking up some of the fundamental Silver Age comics, the things that I could never afford when I was younger. And that's kind of, I guess, kind of how it started. I got a few, I fell in love with them. I have a business background. And when I just started interacting with people, meeting different people, I was like, hey, I'm finding really good sources for this and that. And then there's these other people that want it. One thing leads to another. And all of a sudden, I'm doing deals here and there to help me get X, Y, Z. And I just started meeting a ton of people in the community, really good people. And it just kind of built itself up from there, if you could believe it.
So are there any people like, in particular, like that's kind of like mentored you early on, like kind of taught you a lot of the, the ropes and the ins and outs of like, how to, spot like grading and stuff like that? Was there anybody like that comes to mind?
Yeah, actually. So the first kind of mentor I had was actually he's a financial advisor. He's currently, he was in the Monterey area, but he kind of just he taught me about he had a bunch of Silver Age comics kind of being held as an investment, and he just kind of opened my eyes up to the alternate kind of investment side of things. But on the actual like comic side, like collecting and more of the grading kind of stuff, actually one of my mentors, and I've had many, but Comics for Trade, he's actually on Instagram. His name's Angelo. Mm-hmm. Angelo is like one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met in this stuff, and he definitely took me under his wing and like showed me kind of why books are graded the way they are, kind of taught me how to stick to the fundamental keys in terms of like, things that I really want to grasp for. So I would consider him probably one of my first mentors, and I'm really appreciative of that.
Very cool.
Wow.
So what else did you get into kind of early on, like other than comics? Like how did you get from, lawyer to here to Elite Comics?
Well, just, I'm half Lebanese, half Honduran. My parents came here with nothing. So and I'm the firstborn. So by definition, whatever the family business was, I was doing that. So it was like toys to like artificial floral, home decor, and then ultimately, and it still currently is, a all-natural meat farm here in California. Nowadays, I manage that. Years ago, like even when I started law school, I was just, helping out here and there. So there's that. And then there's the law job. And then there's this, which my page started out. I mean, for anyone who has followed our page the whole time, at first it was just me showing off my personal books. There was no business element to it. The selling side for me, I picked up a couple collections probably in about 2016-ish, and I honestly started selling on Facebook first. I own the Vintage Comics group on Facebook, which is a group that's limited just to vintage comics. I really just started meeting people on Facebook. And then about 3 years ago, a friend of mine convinced me to set up an IG page. And I thought I knew it all on Facebook, but I made the transition, and it's one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah. I think we're all part of that vintage comic page as well.
Yep.
on
It's
Facebook.
Awesome.
I personally, I think the first book I bought from you was probably way back. I don't even think I did it through our Long Island Comic Guys page, but it was a 9/6 Amazing Spider-Man 300 I got from you a while back, and that was like I think kind of the early goings of Elite Comics on IG. So the timelines make sense now.
So did you start out with the page mostly selling your own stuff, or were you doing consignments right off the bat?
No, I was selling my own stuff.
Yeah.
Primarily. I have a few, I do have a few big dealers that were supportive of me in the beginning, and they let me do consignment things, before I kind of had any business doing them, just because they trusted me. Mm. And I, obviously came through for them. But for the most part, I'd say like 90% of it was my own stuff when I started out.
And what would you say it is now, percentage-wise?
Like today, as in now, just kind of the business has evolved such that maybe like 5% or less is probably my own. Just because I can't keep up with the consignment stuff. So I can't really do as much searching as I used to do. And frankly, just from a business, I'm occupied with obviously the other stuff going on in my life, but then the consignment stuff, quality control, and then we do pressing and cleaning and just making sure. I mean, my main thing is I never want to be like just some cheap alternative. Like I really do want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. So like for pressing and cleaning, we're not the cheapest pressing and cleaning service, but we're the best. Like that's what I'm trying to aim for. And so it takes time. I want to make sure that everything is going as best it can. So that takes time.
So you said we. So how many people are on the Elite Comics team?
Right. Currently, full time, it's me and Bill Bowers. I put him out there. When we respond to messages, he'll say, "Hey, this is Bill," or
I'll join the floor.
And that's it. But I do have a pressing and cleaning team. We have about 3 pressers currently, and they're really, really good. And it's kind of divvied up based on value and skill. So,
I mean, the results we see on your page are crazy.
Thank you.
So you said you're a lawyer, so you're an active lawyer right now? So
Yeah.
How much is your time? So how do you split your time between being a lawyer and the amount of work that you do with Elite Comics?
Yeah, I mean, one of the good things about Instagram is it's kind of always there. So I have to, obviously, my law job, I have to do everything I need for that. There's some flexibility in that, but not so much during the day. Mm-hmm. But once we get to around this time, I can do a lot more of this. But yeah, I mean, I definitely am at the point where I can't do it all myself. So I have Bill. He's on the team, and he's great, and I'm really thankful to have him. And probably I'm going to need some more help soon. So.
Well, it's growing like crazy. I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
So what made you choose? Sorry, who was?
No, go ahead.
So what made you choose Instagram as opposed to Facebook for like your main platform?
Well, if you're on the Vintage Comics group, you'll see that it's a pleasant marketplace or group on Facebook. Why is it pleasant? Because we probably blocked as many people as are in the group. So like, generally speaking, I'm not trying to bash Facebook, but it's just like, since individuals can, be in this group, but not that group, or this group and hide in this group. Like if you do someone wrong on Facebook, it's so much easier to like still operate in some other group. Cause you can, they're all divided that way.
It's the Wild West.
Best things about, it's the Wild West. Like, so-and-so's a scammer in some group, but is still in this other group. And there's some good admin pages that try to capture everything, but it's still like not as good as Instagram where, I mean, if you don't come through or if you scam someone, like it's an open world. Like if somebody
gets blasted everywhere.
And it's great for what we do because, I mean, you want to know who the problems are and people, it encourages people to actually like not be a problem, be respectful and realize how small our community is. And I always say like, it takes forever to build up a reputation, but you can lose it in a day.
Yeah.
Very true.
And I think another point is, especially with, Facebook and Instagram, you're looking at 2 different demographics too. I think with Facebook, you definitely have like kind of like the older community, people who have been collecting a long time. And then, on the Instagram side, it's people who are fresher, more getting into it. I would say like, the 18 to 35 where, Facebook might be like the 35 plus.
Right. I think that's probably generally true.
Yeah, agreed.
Jay's in the 35 plus. Technically, I'm in the 35 plus too, because I just hit it this year.
I am too. I'm well into the 35 plus. I'm 38. So.
Oh man, I'm a baby.
Still a baby.
That's why we call him Toy Story.
I am 25. I'm near 25.
I was 25 last year, so it's okay.
So what would you say, if you could say anything, was the hardest part about building up this reputation that you've curated?
The hardest part, I don't know. I mean, the hardest part has been the number of transactions you have to do in order to get where you are. I mean, it wasn't hard for me to do what I said I was going to do or come through on a deal because that's what I was going to do anyway. But to get to the point where you've done so many that like people stop questioning you, because like think about what we're doing here. Like you're talking about huge transactions. Sometimes somebody sends a check. Sometimes it's like no fee payment. I mean, a lot of times it's no fee payment. And like all people are trusting in is like the fact that I'm guaranteeing the deal. And that's what I do. I guarantee the deal. And again, like we were talking about on Instagram, it's an open world. Like if I didn't come through for someone, all three of you would hear about it. Like, you know, and so it's happened. So maybe the hardest thing is when there is a problem, I've always done what I thought was right, which is step up and fix the problem. And sometimes that meant money out of pocket. Sometimes it meant not, because somebody, thankfully, like I haven't had any like scammer situations, but things happen in shipping or otherwise. Early on, people ask me a lot, like, why don't you sell raw books? I do sell raw books. Like, if I can hold a book, I feel very comfortable with my ability to evaluate a raw book, tell you what I think the grade is, tell you if it's restored. However, if I'm doing it on a consignment basis, I have to guarantee that book, and if it's raw. So, like, if so-and-so gets some book that I've never had in my own hands and then disagrees about the grade, like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll guarantee the book, but I don't know what I'm talking about, so I have to rely on someone else. And I do appreciate and have good relationships with people that consign with me, but putting myself out there, considering I would literally just pay for a book if it came to it, to make sure that nobody gets the short end of the stick, it's a risky endeavor. So I stick to graded books because there's a lot less uncertainty. So
interesting.
So where'd the name Elite Comics come from?
I don't know. It's one of those things, like, I remember spending a bunch of time saying, like, oh, I want to start a comics page. Like, what should I call it? And, like, I came up with Elite Comics. I don't know exactly how. That's sort of what my search was. And then I saw that there were, you know, you're limited by handles. And then I said, oh, well, my nickname growing up was actually 11, and it was 11 before Stranger Things, way before Stranger Things. So that's what the 11 is. It worked out. I could get that handle still, so that's what I picked, and I just stuck with it, and here we are. And I think it fits us pretty well. And when I see it, I see my name in it. Like, that 11, to me, that's just my name right there.
Right.
Is that sports related, that nickname, the 11?
Yeah, so basically, my cousin and I, we have the same, we're both the firstborn. We have a Lebanese background. Your first name is your grandfather's name. So, like, for the firstborns. So him and I have the same name on the same team. We both played, defense sometimes at the same time. And, like, so he was a senior when I got on varsity and I was a junior, and then they didn't want to call me like Little Ollie or whatever. So they just said, you're 11, you're 12. And then your football buddies pick up on that and they start calling you 11 and 12, and 11 just really.
That's funny.
That's cool.
So why don't you go through, so, I mean, we have all kind of different people who listen, and there might be people who aren't on Instagram. You want to just kind of go through, since you're the expert on what your services actually are, and let us know what Elite Comics offers to people?
Yeah, so, I mean, the fundamental purpose of the page, especially nowadays, is it's a premier marketplace for high-end vintage books. So if you follow our page, you'll see several times a day, you'll probably see high-end books hit in the page, and a lot of it is community sourced from other collectors. So in eliminating kind of like the auction house fees or eBay fees and such, we're able to offer books up for, really fair prices based on what they are. I can legitimately tell you that when we post a book, I can't say 100% of the time, but like at least 95% of the time, it's like the cheapest available copy we see anywhere. I mean, we really try to hit that. So that's what we're known for most, but we also have, arguably we're also known for just as well for our pressing and cleaning services now, because we have been creating a ton of value for people. So for the people that are really new at this, the standard now is a lot of people like to take their keys and get them graded by these third-party companies. And the two of the leading companies, CGC and CBCS. And so sometimes you get a raw book and you want to send it in for grading. If you can press and clean a book, there are processes that could improve the ultimate grade from which like the values derived. So if it's a raw book, you might want to get that done. Also, if you buy a graded book and somebody slabbed the book, graded the book in plastic, we call it slab, and they didn't press or clean it or do these processes, or maybe they did, but it wasn't done as well as it could be. People also want to send us in these graded books, and we crack them open, we make them better, then we resubmit them for grading and create value. I mean, people make money off of this improvement in a grade, so it's really high stakes, especially with what we do. And I guess on a related note, we're also a CGC authorized dealer. So we send these books in, for example, as CGC, and we get our customers 20% off of what they would otherwise pay at CGC. And we also send to CBCS as well.
Nice.
So I think, yeah, those are the two main fundamental purposes of our page. We do a lot of anti-scammer kind of watchdog stuff for the community.
I have seen a lot of that stuff, and I've noted the people that you've put out there, and I've noted a lot of people in the community share it too, which is good. I feel like, I don't use Facebook as often. JJ kind of usually handles that side of things, but people share on the Instagram community and the comic community. They share. So like once you see one person post something, that gets pushed around a lot. So it is good that people are out there and doing that. I did have one question when to go back to the pressing for a second though.
Yeah.
So when you get a book, let's say somebody sends you a slab, and you kind of do an assessment at first and say, hey, listen, like I looked at this and I don't see any benefits of pressing it again. Do you usually go back to them and kind of tell them you don't think it's kind of worth doing?
Yeah, I think if you talk to people that have messaged us about pressing, probably close to half the time, because I don't let them send in anything blind. The first step is I want them to show me pictures, and good pictures.
Yeah.
Because, we can walk through it, but it's like, when was it graded? What do you actually see? Show me what you actually see, because I don't have time to burn. Like, I don't want them to waste their time on shipping. I don't want to waste my own time. If we don't feel like a book is a candidate, and we can tell that just based off the pictures, we just say, pass. And some people are like, wow, why wouldn't you just take my money? And the answer is, well, it's the right thing to do, but also it's just not good business to, have somebody waste their money on shipping that's going nowhere and have a really bad taste in their mouth. It's already risky enough. Even when you have a good candidate, you're still relying on a third party ultimately to make a subjective call. You gotta do stuff that makes sense, and it's not cheap either.
Yeah. And that's the thing with what's happening now. I feel like depending on the time of the year or years, you get different waves of things the grading companies are strict on, things are not. I feel like depending on the year, it could be a strict year or more of a lenient year. So it gets pretty crazy, especially with the books. Like I'm sure Hulk 181, for example. So many of the same book like hitting the grading services now.
Yeah.
So do you exclusively do online and Instagram, or do you guys ever do like conventions and stuff like that, like in-person vendoring?
Yeah. So the answer is it's only online. A funny story is actually recently, at the beginning of this year, there was I'm not going to mention names, but there was a local show. A buddy of mine did a traditional convention. I love the convention. I go there. It's a smaller convention, but it's awesome. And I actually asked for a space. I said, can I have a space? Can I have an informational booth? Long story not so short. The answer was, oh, sure, but it's going to take a long, long time. And so that was my attempt to maybe have a booth. I was thinking about it. But then, I'm blessed to have said that and basically got shut down. It was a blessing, because that night I went home and I said, you know what? we're gonna have the first online comic convention. I'm just gonna have my own comic convention on Instagram.
So that's how that started.
That's how
Perfect
segue.
segue.
I just said, let's game plan this. Let's make it happen, and that happened in February of this year.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that, because that was a really cool idea.
Yeah. So I said, well, let's do something for the community. And this was before any of these issues that are going on now, which we'll get into. But yeah, I was like, what do people want at conventions? And I said, I can't recreate everything, but we could get a lot of it. I said, we have the vendors, because I'm already a consignment page. Let's get some panels in here, and let's get, cosplay contests. Let's do some giveaways. And I got some sponsors to help me with some crazy giveaways. So ultimately, it was vendors selling to the page. I cut my own fees a lot to make, and the exchange was, well, for AtCon, I'm going to cut our fees. You have to pass that to the customer. So I want crazy deals. So we had I think it was about 250 books that hit the page during AtCon. That was the online convention. So the selling side was there. We had the cosplay contest. We gave out $400 to the winner. We had a kids drawing contest. There was a $100 prize. And then we just did video panels, and we did some text panels as well. We had Neil Adams involved. And the sponsors were great. I gave away thousands of dollars in comics, guess a number, here you go. Have a trivia question, here you go. $100 book, $100 book. And I think people really enjoyed it. There's definitely room for improvement. I'm already working on the next one, but I thought it was awesome. I hope people enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool idea, and especially like you're saying, before we are kind of this is our only option now. You kind of set the groundwork already for it, so yeah. It was pretty cool. I remember Toy Story actually was the first one to see it. He's like, "You see this about this Instagram Comic-Con?" I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
We were looking into it. I was like, it was great. Yeah, I know the two of us definitely caught it at different times of the day. But was it just one day, or you had multiple days?
There was one day mostly where all the panels and especially the live stuff happened, and then we had it technically on 2 days. But on the second day, it was just more books hitting our page at this discounted kind of setup. So
yeah, I think that's when I caught a lot of it. It was cool stuff though. A lot of big books came through there. You guys sold a majority of it too, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was priced to sell, and things were really moving at that time again because none of the current stuff had happened. So it was a really strong time, and a lot of stuff moved fast.
I mean, like you said before, one of the things I really love about you guys is that all your stuff is priced reasonably. So I'm curious, when people come to you to consign and to sell books, do you ever, tell them that? I'm sure you have to tell them sometimes if their price is too high, right?
Yep. I mean, again, it's a blessing. I don't mean to complain, but it's we can say no a lot more nowadays than we could before, just because fortunately there is a lot of people that want to put stuff up on our page, and so it's almost like a real estate issue. It's like, if I'm going to put something up, I have to feel good that it's going to sell, and the way I judge that is if I want to buy it, I don't expect someone else to. So it has to be a fair deal, not necessarily a steal, but just fair based on data. And of course, there's arguments about what data means, what it doesn't mean, or how much data there is, but it just needs to feel fair. That's what we try to do.
And you must find it difficult. Have you had an instance where you had maybe multiple books of the same book at the same time from different people?
Yeah. It's happened. What I do in that situation is, first of all, the first book wouldn't have been up unless I thought that was a fair price. So if there's already one copy up and they're the same grade or whatever, I'm going to honor the first person up, and I'm not going to introduce another book to compete with that other book if for some reason that seller wants to sell it. cheaper. I mean, there's been situations where a book has been sitting there for a long time. I'll give a heads up to the person that was first and just be like, hey, someone else wants to sell that same book for this. I'll give you 2 or 3 more days. And if it doesn't move, I got to put up this other book. So I try to be fair about it. I mean, there's no absolute.
I think that's probably the best way you can do it in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are kind of the coolest books that, at least in your eyes, that have come through Elite Comics 11? Kind of ones that you were like, wow, that's a pretty awesome book. I know you have one right now that's pretty cool. I don't know if it's sold yet, but.
Well, I'll say, me personally, so Amazing Fantasy 15 is my favorite book, even though it might not be the rarest kind of book that comes through. It's still freaking first Spider-Man. So, I actually am currently in the market for, a higher grade AF-15. I just got rid of my 2.5 with the anticipating that I'm going to get a higher grade one now, but there's been I think the highest one we've moved on the page so far was a really nice 3.5. But there's been higher ones. We put up some 5.0s and stuff. I see that. I'm like, wow, I need to get that. So if that pops up again, I'm probably buying it. But the biggest book we've ever moved was a Detective Comics 31. So that's the, Batman in the Castle, the original iteration.
I remember seeing that when you posted it.
Yeah. So that was like a 1.0 and it cracked 40K. Like that's a monster, super scarce book. But man, I love that cover. I love Batman 227 as well. So yeah, I think those, I'd say that was the biggest one. But for me, the AF-15s, it's always hard to just not buy them all, to tell you the truth. So.
Do you ever have people come to you saying, hey, I want to consign this, and you're just like, oh, I'll buy that from you?
Oh yeah, that happens. It totally happens. But it's not here right now, but so one of the coolest stories for me on that point is I was contacted about a year and a half ago by somebody who said that they knew somebody in Germany who had this X-Men #1 Raw, and it was signed. And so one thing led to another, and I actually reached out to this person in Germany, and the book was X-Men 1, and it was signed on the first page by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And so it took a long time to, get to the point where everyone was comfortable. I got it here to the States, sent it to CBCS. They verified the signatures, and it worked out perfectly. And it's freaking X-Men 1 signed by both of those legends. That's a keeper for me.
Wow.
That's not going.
What was it? What was the grade on that?
Cool one. I remember that was on the stream. Whatever the last stream was, I saw that up there in the corner. I remember someone asking about it.
Well,
yeah, I usually have it here. It's my favorite book, and the answer is with CBCS, and it was such a rush. I didn't even press it or anything. I just wanted to verify everything was authentic. But it's a 5.0 as it sits right now.
wow.
Well, at that point, the signature is the most important thing. A Jack Kirby signature,
yeah, agreed.
That's awesome.
Oof. So, you guys want to move on to the Remedy tour? You have any other questions on Acon?
No, I'm good.
Yes. No. All right. So I really jumped on when you mentioned this, because the first shop you did it with it's not our local comic book shop, but it's one of our local comic book shops. Mike and his team there are some of the best people. Like, we
awesome
know Royal
guys.
Collectibles. I mean, I've bought a ton of stuff from there. I mean, I'm 13 Amazing Spider-Mans away from a full run, and I've gotten about 80% of them from those guys. So let's just go into the Remedy tour. Kind of what inspired you to do that? And it was a great thing to do too.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things I'm probably most proud of. Obviously we're facing like an unprecedented time. Like, this is a huge problem, the coronavirus, COVID-19 stuff. So you got, kind of as a business background, like I mentioned my farm, my meat farm, and actually we've currently made the decision to not operate. So we're not operating. So that's an example of a business that you know, it makes sense to just not do it right now. And so, you know, although it could operate, it's risky. Some of these comic book shops don't even have that option. Like, they cannot open right now. So again, I just sat down, and there's so much about this that's frustrating, because like I can't do anything about it. Like, I just have to accept it or manage it. But then I just said, what can I actually do? Like, what can I do? Like, what do I have? What can I do? And I said, you know, I got this platform. I have these amazing followers. I said, we don't really do live sessions, but I'm like, let's look into it. And I figured out, like, oh, we can do split screen. I can bring someone else in with me, and we can do split screen. I said, what if these comic book shops that can't open, what if we just go split screen with them, give them a platform and an opportunity to sell directly to this amazing community, and just kind of support them in that sense? That could really affect people's lives. And so that's exactly what we did. And when I started, Mike from Royal Collectibles, I mean, he's been a good friend of mine, but he's one of the first people I thought of. And so that's kind of the story behind that. I reached out to him. I said, hey, I want to try this. And, you know, he was on board, and we tried it. It went amazing. We've done, tomorrow will be the 5th stop. You guys are releasing after tomorrow, but on Thursday, tomorrow, we're going to do another shop, and there's more scheduled. So people, after they hear this, they'll be able to see some more stops as well. But yeah, I mean, these shops get to sell directly to the community, and it's been going really well and making a difference.
Yeah, I've been blown away by what's been happening, because I've literally jumped on every one since the first one. I think I've purchased something from everyone at this point. So,
Thank you.
Helping where we can.
Yeah, dude. The second one you did, what was that shop in California? The second one.
That was We Can Be Heroes. That was by far the biggest one so far.
I think we both, me and you, sat on that for like the full 8 hours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was close the whole time.
Let me say, like, so when I plan these things with the shops, like, I tell them, like, what we're aiming for here is probably about 2 to 3 hours, okay? But with We Can Be Heroes, those guys, I mean, I showed up, I didn't know they had that much.
They kept pulling stuff out of left and right, like 6 hours in. Oh, here's this big one.
Yeah, so that guy kept going to the box. Bill's going to the box again.
So, I mean, it's just so fulfilling to be able to help, especially at this time. That, like, to tell you the truth, I think we went for I sat there for 7.5 hours with these guys, and we just kept going.
You must have been wearing a catheter.
Yeah, but I was lost in the moment. If a moment lasts 7.5 hours, I'm just like, this is freaking awesome. This is really helping people. Let's keep going.
It must feel so good too to see like the claims come up on the screen for all these books and just see them, you know, that what you're doing is helping them.
Definitely. So, you know, I guess time flies when you're having fun. So 7.5 hours later, we stopped.
It is pretty crazy how like long we were sitting there and like looking at stuff, and it's just like, oh, I started watching this at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, it's 9 p.m. I was like, wow.
Like, after like hour 5, after hour 5, I started getting trolled. Some people were saying, oh, Ali looks tired. And then side, I was like, oh yeah, like, let's wake up, and we just kept going. So it was awesome.
Yeah, it's been really cool. So do you have a lot more shops lined up?
Yeah, we do. I'm just trying to schedule everything. But yeah, we have a lot. And the one challenge has been a lot of the people that, I don't want to say need the help most, but they could definitely especially use the help. They're not tech savvy. So part of this, I know who needs to do it. But you know, there's a certain amount of quality control. Like, we can't do it until I can see that, like, it can be done. So a lot of it's been like tech support kind of stuff, setup kind of consultation. So I have some really good stops lined up, but I need to make sure that it gets to the point that people would want to sit through it and it will do well. I want to set people up for success. So
do you get an idea? Do you get an idea of what they have beforehand? So you know what they're going to sell?
Definitely. And I've tried to be flexible about it. So one of the best things about this, other than helping people, is a lot of people, because of the nature of our page and sticking to the really big keys, a lot of the people that follow us, they watch, but like, understandably, they can't splurge at the kind of stuff we sell. So the Remedy Tour allows them to not only help these shops, but also buy all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys tuned in to the one in Sacramento, but I did my local
statues and toys.
Yeah, Comic Command Center, and like we were selling statues, toys, and that stuff that I don't know much about at all. But I said, when I meet them virtually, and they kind of show me their shop, I'm just like, okay, well, I see what your shop has. I see some stuff I think works, but is selling XYZ the best way to help you? Like, what is in your shop right now that you want to focus on, even if it's not something that we typically deal with? This is the time to go ahead and give it a try. So I try to make sure I understand what they have and what they need.
And I feel like actually the best setup they've had so far is with those guys, because when they were resetting up the rack, it gave them opportunity. I was like, all right, while we do this, we'll pan around to the store, and if anyone sees some, that was great, because at that, like, that's the first one where you really didn't have any dead time. So it was always like there was something available to, like, pick up or ask about, which I thought was really cool. If other shops have that kind of stuff, that'd be a perfect opportunity as well.
Definitely. They had 4 employees, I believe, working with the cameraman, so it allowed for that. Some of these other shops don't have those resources, so we just try to do the best we can. But ideally, that would be the ideal setup.
Yeah, that was a really good one. I mean, all of them have been really good. I mean, I've gotten some great books. I mean, at that last one alone, just to give the idea. I mean, there's high end stuff, sets and runs that are available, guys. I mean, like, from Royal, there was like Avengers, high end Avengers books, Spider-Man slabs, the Batman books, detect everything, like the gamut of everything. There was a 181 at Comic Command Center that there was about 1 billion questions on that you had to constantly say that the one of the pages was missing. I was just, at that point, because I know there's a delay, and I was replying before it. I was like, the page is missing. Just if you still want it, it doesn't affect the story.
And that's the first. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as awesome as Instagram is, and I hope it gets better, there are some limitations to doing this, but so there's been some controversy, like, I claimed that first, I did this first. There's some filtering that frustrates people, but I just tell people, like,
it is what it is.
We're going off our screen, and like, we're here for the community, and we're gonna get through this. The technology is not perfect, but this is something that not a lot of people are doing, if anyone else is doing. So
yeah, I mean, I think even we were having that same issue the first time with the Royal sale. Like, I think our comments weren't coming through, and they're filtering out. So it's just kind of like, it's something you have to kind of deal with, and if you miss out, you miss out.
It's frustrating.
Doing the best you can, kind of thing.
It's frustrating when you say you hit that claim, and then a millisecond before, somebody beat you a millisecond beforehand, and you're like, God darn it, and your wife is wondering why you're yelling at your phone.
But the worst part is, on their end, is they scroll up, and then they see on their screen that they were first.
Oh, yeah.
On my screen, it doesn't show that way. So it's really hard to explain that to people because there's filtering and priority. And so my screen could be different than your screen.
Oh, interesting. So I didn't know that.
The only fair thing to do is to just base everything off of my screen.
Yeah, of course.
It's the only consistent thing. Otherwise, who is going to be the master screen? So just stick to what's on my.
Cool. So I have a question, just your opinion. So when this whole COVID-19 thing started, one of the things that I thought of, like, all these stores are closing. How is this going to affect the comic book industry, sales, prices, and stuff? So I'm curious, doing these sales through the stores or even through your own page, have you noticed anything yet in terms of stuff moving or pricing or anything like that?
Well, I think there's a supply and demand, right? So it depends. Like, they cut off. My understanding is they cut off the modern releases. So that kind of stuff, I'm sure when it starts again, people will, continue on that. Fine. In terms of some of the older stuff, especially like the high price stuff, I mean, if you have forums for sales that are taken away, and a lot of people they don't have access to the online kind of forums. You're going to have a lot of supply, and demand isn't necessarily going to go away. It's more that it's not going to be available. So I think you will, this kind of thing happens. It's natural. What you would expect is that people, they'll be motivated to sell, and they might sell for less than they otherwise would if they had that convention lined up, but they don't. So I would expect it to have some effect. So hopefully it doesn't last too long. But that's what I mean. I say, like, if you're a dealer and you're impacted and you need a forum, I mean, I'm happy to work out some custom deal that makes sense for you, so you can use our page, or you could. I've reached out to dealers. I've done one small dealer, but I reached out to other dealers that said, "Do you want to be a stop on the Remedy tour? Like, we can totally do that." So I'm waiting to hear back. It's mostly been shops so far.
All right. That's that's a great thing. And, anyone who, is in need, or, anyone listening that, is looking for another outlet to sell, hit up Ali at Elite Comics 11. So let's go into the kind of the next big event you have coming up. So it would be, since this is going to be releasing Monday, it officially happened 2 days ago on Saturday. So you have a huge Neil Adams event. Why don't you take us into like all the things that are happening here? Because I know there's a ton of things going on.
Yeah. So like I said, Neil was part of AtCon, that first online convention we did on Instagram. We were lucky enough to have Neil's involvement, and I just want to point out, so Neil Adams is an icon, and, he's been around, and for him to be forward thinking enough to actually be willing to do something that hadn't been done, that was awesome. So for AtCon, he filmed some stuff for us. He did a lot of question and answer where he filmed his answers, and he also offered up some original sketches and art, and people really enjoyed that. People bought a lot of the sketches, and they got their questions answered, but it was all pre-recorded because we were still experimenting with some of the technology. But one of the immediate applications of sort of what I've been doing at Remedy Tours, we got Neil again, and so we're going to talk with him on Saturday, but this time it's going to be he and I, and it's going to be live split screen. So I'm actually going to be able to have a conversation with him in front of everyone, and I'm going to get questions from the community, and I'm going to have him answer them on the spot. And he's also going to be showing, his original sketches and art, and he's going to have some prints available as well. But one interesting element, and it took a lot of brainstorming, but we're actually, the followers are going to be able to have a chance to actually send books in to Neil, get them signed, or put a remark on them and get a signature, and then ultimately have their books returned to them in a CGC yellow label slab, which is something that, you can't do without the convention set up right now. So, outside of CGC has had some private signings, but it's just something that we offer the community that I think is pretty awesome. People are excited about it. So
interesting.
And how long are you going to have that process going on where you're going to be taking submissions and sending them to Neil?
Well, at least several weeks after, through the event, and then several weeks after. Okay. You're going to have time. It's not going to be like hurry up and get it to him by Saturday, because that's not workable.
Yeah.
A lot of people have books that they want to get signed by Neil and get yellow slabs for, but they want us to press and clean them first. So the first step for some people are going to be sending their books to us for pressing and cleaning, and then we'll send them off to Neil. So to answer your question, at least probably a month after the event, we'll still be doing this.
Okay, so if you're listening to this now, you can still send your comic books into Elite Comics 11 to get signed or remarked. Remarked part is he doesn't always do that, so that's a huge
that's cool.
Huge bonus.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it is. I mean, we're
of course all that information is available on your Instagram page as well.
Definitely.
All right, so I think we've gone through about 10 of the different events that you've had going on. Is it possible that you have more upcoming events that you can share right
now? One of the areas we're looking into, I'll just go ahead and do a vague preview, is I'd like to get, more talent and celebrity involvement on our page. I've been talking to people about that. Neil Adams is great. Other artists get their involvement. I'm going to continue the Remedy tour as long as this situation is continuing, because I really do believe it's a good thing. So we're going to keep doing that. And then probably when things get closer to normal, I would like to do another AtCon, another online convention, but this time much bigger, much bolder. And I've been talking to some people about that as well.
Nice. Well, we might be interested, so we'll keep the communication lines open next time. Awesome stuff. You guys have any special questions?
I think I'm good.
No,
Jim?
good.
Yeah. This is very thorough. This is fun. We hope we made you laugh. I heard I saw someone said it's always you always get bonus points if you can make Ali laugh. So I guess I think we got a couple laughs out of you.
You guys have a good setup. It's awesome.
So
yeah, this is fun though. So this is actually outside of our normal too, because we usually do this. JJ has a little recording studio in his basement that we're building out. So we had to, Zoom is a little new to us. He's not really in the Mos Eisley cantina. I just want full disclosure.
hey,
great.
So behind you in your glass cabinets, like what it looks like you got a mixture of a lot of different things there. So you've got some comic books and some toys. I mean, what is your prized possession there?
It's gotta be like, I have some games. I got like classic video game systems, but my prized possessions, like, we weren't going to be recording, so I don't have them up, but it would be my comics. The big comics, they're not up because sometimes some sunlight gets in here, so I only put them out when I'm actually recording.
Very good call.
So you're not just into the comic, you're more broad, so you're into the video games also, and looks like Pops and everything like that, so that's cool.
Like I said, when you hit, at a certain point in your life, I think it's a natural progression that, like, you start wanting to recapture your childhood. So I got some
100%.
icons from my childhood behind me, and that's
in my case, it's a childhood from the '80s that I never got to experience.
I feel like that nostalgia right now is like at an all-time high too. So it's really a great market to be in or be interested in, because there's actually a lot of availability out there. I mean, every day I'm like finding something new from like when I was a kid. I was like, this is awesome. I randomly just started getting into like those old Toy Biz figures, like the DC superhero and Marvel superheroes, like, and they weren't even that great looking. I just loved them. Like, I remember those were the toys I played with as a kid, and I've gotten like a couple, and like now I've just been snatching them up wherever I see them. I see that you have a little Star Wars micro machines over there in the corner too.
That's a super interesting topic, and one you guys might want to get into. But yeah, kind of how this collecting scene evolves when the highest population in terms of where the money is for collecting. When people like I get to the point where, we have some extra money and we're trying to get our childhood, like, how is that going to affect things? Because my childhood wasn't, 1950s Archie's comics. Like,
yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, it's definitely been something we've touched on in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a constant, it's kind of a constant thing that comes up with collecting, and it changes all the time too. I mean, I feel like things like Beanie Babies are starting to grow again, and like, people are looking for those all of a sudden, which I never thought would come back into popularity. But it's just crazy, the things that come up and come. And the only reason I say that is because I literally have one. My daughter pointed it out in my room earlier, and she's like, "Oh, what's that?" I was like, "Oh, it's just being." She's like, "Can I have it?" I was like, let me check first. And I looked up online, it's like $120 Beanie Baby. I was like, no, you can't have it. I was like, you're not going to see that pretty soon because that's going to turn into a comic book eventually.
Well, it's like out of all the books we carry on our page, all the books that cycle through, like to this day, and Bucky's books, if he's listening and he listens, he still owes me one, but I'm still looking for a 9.8 white page Jim Lee X-Men #1 with the Magneto cover. Like, I don't care if there's 50 million of them. Like, I still want one. That's my favorite cover. I don't care how common it is. I still want one. So.
That's fair. Hey, listen, I'm looking for Spawn 9.
You've been looking at that for way too long.
I want the one with the UPC. There's a billion of those out there, too. Yeah. Oh man, this is a lot of fun, Ali. We really appreciate you taking the time. We know you have a crazy schedule, but this is good. We'll have to do this again after some more events you have planned up. Maybe next time you get closer to whenever the next AtCon happens, we can talk again about that and get people's minds on it.
Sure, I'd love to.
But yeah, all right, good. So. I guess this is where we'll wrap up and we'll go into our ending segments and that'll be it.
Cool.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you again, Ali.
Ali,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Ali, for that awesome interview. That was a great time.
Yeah, Greg, that was a really cool interview. I really enjoyed that guy. Tess?
Yes, it was very good.
We did
Sorry, we just did this again.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
We had some technical sound issues. But no, all kidding aside, Ali, thank you again for an awesome interview. It was super informative. If you guys are looking for any of these type of services, definitely hit them up at Elite Comics 11. I think there's a couple underscores in between Elite and Comics and Comics and 11. But he's got a very big following. If you have a big book that you're looking to move and you don't know where to do it, he has pretty fair consignment. Details, and I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
Toy Story messed us all up.
And AtCon, and check out this Remedy tour. I mean, that's really how I got majorly involved with what they were doing. They're going around helping comic shops out. I mean, we know some people might not be working, or they have different situations. But if you're still working, if you're still in a situation where you want to buy some comic books and help out some local comic shops, he's doing these 2 or 3 times a week, so it's worth checking out and seeing what people have. But I think that covers everything, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Have we been reading? Have we been doing anything? Reading anything? What have you guys been doing?
Well, we have a segment.
I know that, but have you been reading any books? Did you read any older books, newer books?
I'm a little behind. I haven't been reading as much because I've been super busy with work, and then we've been trying to ramp up the interview. We'll just let you guys know we've got a few interviews planned already. Since everyone's home right now, we figured it was a good time to reach out to some people who were pretty busy and didn't have time to sit down and talk. So I've reached out to a few people. I'll let you guys know now. The next interview we have is with a super cool local artist, John Bruglia. We're really close with him. We've gotten a lot of artwork. I actually just commissioned another piece today from him.
Did you really?
I saw in the DMs
a Rocketeer piece. I didn't realize he was doing he's doing art to support Comic Book Depot out on the island. So I was like, I totally missed this. I was like, here. I was like, I'll take a Rocketeer commission.
No, that's cool. Yeah,
so,
I've got a Rocket Man from him. I love it. It's one of my favorite pieces.
You have a Rocket Man or a Rocketeer?
Rocketeer. Sorry, Rocketeer. It's a Rocketeer and Betty.
Nice, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've been reading the X-Men. I've been trying to follow up. I'm catching up on Spider-Man. I think I'm still in that next Craven storyline that happened not too long ago.
When you say catch up, have you read the entire? I mean, are you reading? You're reading the whole story, right?
No, I'm only reading. I'm only reading what's on Marvel Unlimited. I'm not reading the books in my queue. But yeah, that's what I've been reading. I haven't really watched much. I watched 2 episodes of Tiger King. Can't get into it.
I
I'm
refuse.
gonna try.
Yeah.
My wife powered through the whole thing.
She likes it.
She told me after she watched it, she said you would hate it. I was like, you're probably right, but I'm gonna try to get through it. I just lost some interest in it.
I have no urge to see that.
I haven't. I know me and Toy Story have both been doing this, but I mean, we're giving free ad at the Barstool, but I'm sure it doesn't matter. But we've been watching Dave Portnoy, the Stooley President's unboxings and pizza reviews, and I've been listening to one of their podcasts. Yeah, it's just you've got to see the packages this guy gets. He gets 100 packages a day from people.
It started out with 2.
Yeah. And what really stinks? So people were originally just sending him frozen pizzas because he's doing a frozen pizza review.
Okay.
Because he's home and he can't go out, so he's doing frozen pizza reviews. So it was just people sending him frozen pizzas at first. Now people are just sending him everything. So I was like, oh man, it'd be awesome if we had those Masters of the Geekyverse T-shirts, and we could send him some stickers and stuff like that. And maybe we could send him a frozen pizza that he hasn't tried yet, and we'll put that all together.
I could just picture what he would say if he opens a Masters of the Geekyverse shirt.
He goes frickin' loses or something like that.
And throws it by the
what a bunch of wicked. If we got the colors are going to be fire, so I think he might have wore it just for the colors though.
That's true. That's true. We just send him a polo shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. All right. So let's go into this segment though. Did anybody else want to talk about?
I'm almost done with Fellowship of the Ring, actually.
Oh, the book?
Yeah, the first book.
Have you been skipping the songs?
I skim them. I legit today. I sent you this picture. I couldn't believe that a song actually took up a full 3 pages.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember them being longer than.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll run into much longer ones, but it's crazy.
That's...
So you started with Lord of the Rings, right?
I started with The Hobbit.
Oh, you did.
And I powered through The Hobbit in like 3 days, and then I'm going a little slower through this just because it's a little denser, and I don't want to miss anything. So I'm taking my time, but I got everything so far, and I'm really liking it. So it's just not something I can watch.
Nice.
That's fair. What about you, JJ?
I've only been.
Oh, sorry. Did I cut you off?
I've only been. I caught up on the Disney Plus the Clone Wars, which is pretty cool. I know Toy Story. You're waiting till it's all done, but
is it done yet?
No, not yet. But it's okay. Pretty cool. It's it's just like watching it back in the day. So it's pretty good storyline so far, and I think it's just gonna get better.
Nice.
I gotta tell you, I'm psyched out of my mind that chick's still like bouncing around, and we're gonna see her on Mandalorian.
Yeah,
I know.
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But she makes the show. I mean, without her, I don't think it would be as good. It'd be a good show, but not as good. So yeah, I'm all caught up on that finally. So it's pretty cool. And I rehashed some of these Avenger movies last week, just because I just watch them again.
I wound up watching 2 randomly also. My daughter was watching the last half hour of Thor with me. She goes, "What is this?" I was like, "It's Thor." So she's obviously doing like schoolwork from home, but I've also been teaching her the important things. Like now she knows the name of every single character and statue in my office, and the toys too. So she knows most of the Masters of the Universe line now, and just the important stuff that she's going to need later in life.
Good, yeah.
I also been catching up on going through my Spidey collection. I've been sharing some of those with Toy Story. Some of the ones that need to be upgraded. Yeah, doing a little cataloging.
Yeah. Do you have a nice long list of upgrades? Do you have a nice long list of upgrades?
It's not that big actually. Some of the early ones are. I mean, there's the main first appearances. I do want upgrades, but some of the raw books I have. I mean, if they're nice and they present well, I'm not really looking to, get 6.0s or better on a lot of the early stuff unless it's the first appearance.
I'd like higher grades on the filler stuff up to 100. I know we differ on that just because I feel like they're, number one, they're such nice covers, but number two, they're not that expensive or hard to find in such high grade. So
yeah, right now, you're right. I mean, I think there's definitely stuff. And I had a lot of like early stuff that was more beat up. So much of it was stuff I bought very early on before I really knew what to keep my eye out for and what the values were. So like some stuff I saw, I was like, I know I bought this like super early on. I was like, I would have never even bought it now, but yeah, you know, it is what it is. All right. So I think we're done with that, right? You guys all?
Yeah.
Yep.
We caught up on what we're doing or lack thereof.
Oh yeah.
So we had something different for you guys though tonight. A pretty cool, fun segment. We're going to be calling it Unpopular Geek Opinions. And we're going to be going through the things that we either like that people don't like, or things that everyone loves, and we're not too big a fan of. So it's going to be a little bit all over the spectrum. Does anybody want to volunteer to kick it off, or
are we reading all of ours at once, or just like one of them?
Let's do like a round table.
Okay.
So whoever starts will follow this order on the screen.
Okay, so that's
Yeah, you want to start?
So people,
Yeah.
I know people love Aquaman, right? So
I figured you were going to start with that. All right, so part of the thing is you have to say why you either like it or don't like it, and everyone else does.
Oh, I love Aquaman. I've been an ocean guy, a water guy since I was a little kid. I mean, that's that's why I became a he was not the reason why I became a diver, but it's I became a diver early in my youth, and dove in the Navy and dove after the Navy and still diving today. And it's just I've always been a water guy, and I've always felt connected to that kind of character. I like that character, and not because he talks to fish, but it's just that water that water realm. I dug that. I like him more than I like Submariner. I like the Submariner looking guy. He's pretty cool, but it's just I didn't grow up with that character. I didn't know much about him when I was a kid. I've always known about Aquaman because he was in all those the Super Friend Hour and all that other stuff and those cartoons in the 80s, and that's that's what I grew up on, and that's why I looked, not to say looked up to, but I enjoyed that type of character.
And he was also like a true superhero, where Submariner was kind of like an anti-hero, sometimes good guy, sometimes bad guy too.
Yeah, and I know that now, but back in the day, when I was a kid, I didn't know that character existed. So if I knew about him, it may have been it may have been different. I don't know.
Sure. All right, good. You want to go? Sorry.
No.
Oh.
You want to go next, Toy Story?
Sure. So I think this is very obvious. I think Star Wars Episode 3 is one of the best of the Star Wars. That's just it.
Go ahead. So now this is where you will submit your reasoning.
So it's my number 3, I think, on the list behind Empire and Return of the Jedi. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that that's the one that I grew up on. That's the first one I saw in the movies. That's the one that got me into it. But it's still the only one to this day where I like just the whole way through. I feel somewhat more emotionally attached to it than I do with any of the others. And again, I don't know if that's because of, the way I experienced it as a kid, but the story, just for me at least, the story, the stakes, the battles, and everything. It's everything that I want in Star Wars and everything that I love about Star Wars. And Hayden's not that bad in it.
That's like when JJ says, when I ask him, hey, how does it sound this episode? He goes, it's fine. That's like saying it's like saying Hayden wasn't that bad in that. He's fine. I mean, I tend not to agree.
Oh, I know.
And you know why? So the only reason why I give you a little bit of it is because I think they took a lot of lines away from him that movie, because he doesn't really say a ton in that movie. But
no, Ewan's my favorite part of that movie.
Yeah, and honestly,
and the Emperor.
He's probably one of the best characters in that. I mean, Yoda's really awesome in those prequels. I mean, 2 is by far the worst. You don't like Yoda?
Yoda was horrible. I mean, it wasn't even a puppet. It was just no.
You see, but but I don't judge by the technology. I always am very lenient with my judgment of technology, because you go back and look at the originals, like, you can't judge the technology on that now, because, you know, compared to what we have today, it's, you know, leaps and bounds apart. I mean, I to see Yoda fight and like do stuff like that, you know, when those movies came out, that was amazing to me.
So you enjoyed that?
I like that. You know, I know a lot of people, so that might be, it's not one of my unpopular opinions, but I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think that was.
Hey.
Yeah. Listen, I beat the episode 3 thing to a dead horse, so we don't have to stay so long on it. But I figure that's my number one most unpopular opinion.
If I'm going to follow up after you, this was going to be my first. I didn't expect you to come out the gate with the Star Wars. I'm going to follow up that with. I don't think A New Hope was that great.
Ooh.
Yeah, unpopular opinion, right?
Compared to the other two, I'll agree with you, actually.
So, I do think the first 3 original movies are not my order. You guys know my order. They're 1, 2, 3, and the whole 9. I know that differs from you, Toy Story, but I feel like it was still so. There's so many holes, and there's so much great acting, but there's also a lot of bad acting. Like Mark Hamill. Definitely his worst performance in all of the movies that he did. Carrie was okay. It was just a lot of not. It wasn't as tight a movie as Empire was. And I know Empire is considered the great one. My personal favorite, again, is Return of the Jedi. And I know most people, that's an unpopular opinion too. Most people don't like Return of the Jedi. But I just feel like, and there's not a lot going on. Like they're always like running back and forth kind of thing. Like the whole opening scene is very slow. Like the whole thing at home is very slow. You know, when he gets to the base, you don't see this until deleted scenes. You don't even know that guy's Biggs. Like when I first saw the movie, like the guy he was talking about, I was like, wait, that's that guy? Like I didn't know that until you saw the deleted scene that like Biggs, he actually reunites with his buddy Biggs. But I don't know. It's just, you know, again, unpopular opinion, but I don't think it's that great.
Jim, you look very troubled.
I'm hurt.
That's fair. That's fair. Hey, listen, these are meant to be honest. No thin skin here. So it's up to you again now, JJ.
All right. So, okay, sure. Batman. I'm going to say the Batman movies. Okay. What's his name?
I can't wait for this.
Yeah, no, they got the darn it's American Psycho dude.
Oh.
What's his name?
Oh, Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. I can't stand him as Batman. I don't think he was a really good Batman. I don't even think he was a good Bruce Wayne. He didn't fit the part. It drives me nuts. I just watched this movie again 2 weeks ago. And, you know, I sat there and watched, and I've seen all the other movies. I love Batman 89. We talk about that all the time. That was probably the ultimate Batman movie out of all of them. This guy, I like him. I like George Clooney better than I like this guy.
This is a hot take. This is definitely a hot take.
That's good.
You know what? I agree with you on parts of it for sure. I don't get Bruce Wayne from him at all.
None. Even a Batman, I don't.
Bruce Wayne from Affleck, I think.
Yeah, but Affleck is almost like. You see, my problem is that I feel like with Batman and Superman, their alter egos are way more than just, you know, taking glasses off and putting a mask on. I feel like you're supposed to have there's really two personas, and you don't. And I don't really think that many people did that. And I don't really
I think
know
Keaton did.
if someone who.
Do you think Keaton did?
I think Keaton did a decent amount, but even him, he was not like that scene where he's meeting with the Joker. Like he's a psychopath. I was like, I don't really get Bruce Wayne from that. I mean, it's really hard. It's I feel like nobody ever stops being Batman. And again, you know, we're not Batman guys. If Bojo was here, he would definitely be able to add more of this. I haven't read as many of the comics, but I just don't see like anyone really crushing Bruce Wayne.
None of
On
them.
film, no.
None of them.
You want to know? I'll be honest. My favorite Bruce Wayne, probably Val Kilmer.
Oh, interesting.
Another hot, unpopular take. But I can see where you're coming from, JJ. I think people say Christian Bale is their Batman. It's like,
I don't see it. It drives me
Batman.
nuts. And it's funny because I just watched it again, and I was just like, why? They could have gotten somebody different for this. Like, it drove me nuts. And then I started comparing him to all the other ones, and I'm like, you know what? I actually like George Clooney better than this guy. And that was a horrible flick. That's a whole different story.
He was also not a bad Bruce Wayne either.
I liked him as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he just wasn't a good Batman. All right. So what's your second hot take?
I'm gonna continue on the Batman train.
Wow, we're following up here.
Jeez.
So I love Batman. I consider myself a Batman guy. Nowhere compared to Bojo and Polari, I probably know nothing about Batman, but I love Batman and I've read my fair share of Batman. Batman 66, I think, is the most garbage, unwatchable piece of trash there is. And I don't understand it besides nostalgia. I do not get it. I've tried so many times, but I don't get it.
I don't know how much of that is an unpopular opinion. It's definitely farce. I mean, I don't really have a good answer for you.
I don't even have one for you because I always, I've seen enough of them back when I was a little kid, and I remember being like, well, this is kind of kooky. Like it was strange, but some of the some of the episodes were funny. Some of them were like, what? Like this is just stupid. Him doing a dance. It was really weird. It was like hot or cold. I think when
it was
that
really a reflection of the time.
Right. I was just going to say that it was about the time. It was a different time when that was made. You couldn't do that now.
Well.
You can't do that now because it would be chastised. It would never make it past the pilot. Just like Aquaman never made it past the pilot.
You couldn't even do that as a joke.
No, you couldn't. And it wouldn't
even translate as a joke.
It wouldn't. And so it's all the time. And I see your point. It is kind of, it's weird. It's kooky, but for that time in that time period, the people loved it. It was a different setting.
Yeah, I get it.
And I'll be honest with you, I really like Adam West as Bruce Wayne.
I liked him as
He
Bruce
was very
Wayne.
good Bruce Wayne.
He didn't play Bruce Wayne a lot though, which was funny. If you think of like the ratio, if you ever watch enough of them,
very low,
very little Bruce Wayne, more Batman. And the same thing with Burt Ward. Like there was not a lot of Burt Ward. It was more Robin.
And I mean, again, I can't confirm this 100%, but I know at that time, like that's like right after like McCarthyism, and like the comic books were very like whimsical at that time. So I mean, that's why you were kind of reflecting that thing. I mean, the good thing about it though is you were exposing the whole world. I mean, like probably a lot of people knew who Batman was, but his rogues gallery. I mean, like Batman and Spider-Man is probably the only other closest character have one of the deepest and well-known rogue galleries of villains, and even though the performances were very silly and whimsical, a lot of the looks were pretty good for the villains, and they had huge actors at the time play them.
Oh, huge!
And then Mr. Price play like Egghead or something.
Vincent Price, yeah, he played Egghead. Who I don't even think was he even a Batman character. He was just made up for the show, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Was Egghead? I don't even. That's a hilarious mug. Sorry, no, people can't see that, but Toy Story is drinking from a BB-8 mug.
All right, that's my.
I mean, the guy who played Cesar Romero was a huge actor at the time.
Yeah,
Frank Gorshin, another huge actor who played the Riddler. I mean, Burgess Meredith, who plays Mickey in the Rocky movies, is the Penguin. I mean the stars, people who play the villains were bigger stars than Batman or Adam West ever were.
Yep.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, the most beautiful Catwoman ever is Julie Newmar.
I'll agree with you there.
Absolutely.
Was a stunner. I mean, unbelievable. But yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. It's definitely farcical, and I don't think anyone takes it seriously.
They better not.
All right, I guess I'll go next. So, next unpopular opinion. I like reading digital comics a lot more than I do physical ones. So I know a lot of people, and I know this is an unpopular opinion between the three of us, but I know there's definitely a lot of people out there who are like, I like to have, the book in my hand, and, I'm thinking of Bojo, right? I like to get like some of the inking on my fingers. I was like, listen, I know I'm probably a little bit of a part of the problem right now, but I only buy books for the possible value or collecting of them. I was like, I don't want to any book I get, I barely want to touch it because I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
For any reason it would be worth anything, or if it'd be part of my collection, I want to keep it pristine. But I mean, reading, it's just, especially with like the panel reading, which I really enjoy doing. I don't know if you guys are the same.
Yeah, where
I
books is on one panel, right?
Yeah, it's so much easier to read that way, and
it's just so convenient too, having everything on your iPad. Like, I totally get it.
And it's small, and it's smaller, and it's convenient. That's what it is. And
also, I want to read this thing right now. It's 10 p.m. I don't have it. Oh, look, I can go download it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
I know we're not traveling now, but I might not necessarily want to pull out a Spider-Man comic book on the train and let everybody know, like, oh, like this loser reading a comic book.
That's how I found you.
You were that guy with a comic book.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. Like, I'm a big digital reader also. I like buying the books for the value. But I also like the touch and feel, but it's a lot different now than it was back years ago. It's a different paper, so I get it. I understand. The older books, is that more of that newspaper feel. Like, it's got a very distinctive smell and feel where you don't get that now. So
you're right.
It's a little different, but I get it.
And to the same point, I do like opening. Like, when I actually open an old comic book, like, I do like to flip through it and like look at it. It's just like, like, especially when you're checking it for like Marvel value stamps, stuff like that. But it is cool to look through them. I mean,
and you're more inclined to get a fingerprint stuck on a page on the newer books than you are in the older books.
Yeah, dude. 100% on the back of
because of all those glossy covers.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, you're up next, JJ.
So
Are we doing good on time here, or should we make this one our last one?
No, we can make this our last one. I've got two more. It doesn't matter. We're probably about 1:35 right now.
All right, let's see how long this round takes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stay on the my next two, I've got two more really, and they're both comic book related, but I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it without getting so angry. And trying to keep my vocals down and not use so many swear words. I'm going to say two words, and I think everybody's going to understand. Rob Liefeld.
I'll be honest with you though, I don't even know if that's an unpopular opinion.
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you were going to say that you love him, like how our buddy Tom Travers has come on, I think there's definitely a lot smaller group of people who absolutely love Rob Liefeld than there is a group of people who are against Rob Liefeld. I mean, and this could just be our circle, but
okay. I
mean, go ahead, go off.
I can't stand this MFer. I mean, it's funny because I do, and I don't know why. I never took myself off of his groups. I must have joined them a long time ago, and I'm still on them. I've never been banned because I don't trash talk him on his thing. I normally just don't trash talk.
And watch the drama,
right? And it's just it's funny when somebody says something bad, even about the way he does something, and right away he's like, "Gone. This guy's gone. Like, you're blocked and everything else." And it's just the way it just drives me how he acts towards his fans. That's what drives me nuts about this guy. It's
what's that?
It drives me nuts about how he acts towards his fans. So now he's at the point where he's not signing CGC books CGC books that have the the Deadpool label now. He's not signing those because it's not his artwork and nobody asked him, and he's not getting the money from that. So it's little stuff like that that just drives me nuts. Like he's not for the fans. He's more about the money. And I understand that you got to make money and all that, but it's also, you've got this other side where you've got to do stuff for the fans because they're the ones giving you the money. And it just seems like he pushes those people away.
I definitely think that he's alienating more people than he is getting new followers.
Every day.
He has a face that you just want to punch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk anymore about him. Move on. But that was it.
I think that's a good idea. All right, Toy Story, you're up.
All right. What should I go with? All right, this is gonna really upset you, Tess, I think. But
fun.
What's that?
Fun.
I haven't been reading a long time, since 2013 about. I dabbled in just about all the big guns, all the big superheroes, and I've read a good amount of everything. The one superhero that I've enjoyed the least reading out of all of them, and that I think is the least interesting to me, is your boy Superman.
No, you're right.
I've read so much. I feel like I don't know. He just seems so bland to me. And I get that his whole thing is like, he wants to do good, this, that, and the other thing. But there probably are a ton of them and I just don't know, but I don't see so many flaws. I like to see like flawed characters and stuff like that. I haven't read any stories that have totally blown me away. The villains don't really do much for me. It could just be that I haven't read enough of the right things, but that's just the mental idea I've always had of him.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. You're not wrong. I mean, there's a lot of the problem with a character like him and like a Captain America are they're the ideal superhero. They're kind of like the superhero the other superheroes like try to be.
Right, and I totally get that.
And it doesn't necessarily make for good storytelling a lot of the times because he doesn't have these flaws. He's not like a Batman or a Wolverine or like a Tony Stark where he has all this like baggage with him. And I'll be honest, I've definitely read more Batman books than I've enjoyed of Superman books. If you want some recommendations, I think Superman for All Seasons is a fantastic Superman read. The early Rebirth stuff was also very good. When they put him with like the family unit, because you need to give Superman like.
I remember hearing that the stories with his son were really good.
Right? They were early on. They were, and I've fallen off because I'm not reading. I don't have access to digital DC stuff anymore. But I mean, listen, the Death of Superman was a really good storyline. If you ever wanted to read that, I actually just bought the whole collection of graphic novels from Royal Collectibles. But yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, and I'm a huge Superman guy, and he's more of an idealistic type character than he is a really good comic book read, and he's a good character to watch in a movie as opposed to like reading a story about him.
I'm going to agree, I've very much enjoyed all the Superman movies.
And I think,
so. I think just coming from a comic book perspective for me.
I think he's gone through so many transitions also. So, I mean, you got a guy in the 30s who's, for the first, I'm going to say, 40, 50 years, you got this character, he's, all American, you're looking at this guy, he can't do anything wrong. And then all of a sudden, the last few years, they've come up with different storylines with him where he's up and down. There's the death, he's getting married, now he's got a family. Like he's not this all-American goody two-shoes guy anymore, like he was in the 50s or 40s or stuff like that. That's the way I kind of look at it. Like he's gone through so many transitions, that's why I kind of
still is.
It's a little different than the way he was when he first started out. That's why I've dropped off on reading him. It's kind of weird, There was a series where he lost his powers, and this was a couple years ago. Like he had no powers, and when you go through that many transitions, people are going to start falling off because they're like, well, this is not the same character. Even though he's Superman, it's not Superman anymore. And and then a year later, he's back to being, now he's got more different powers, or then this, and it gets stupid after a while, and nobody's gonna. You lose interest in it.
I mean, I'll be straight with you. The New 52 stuff, Superman, was probably the worst New 52 stuff, and that's saying a lot because the New 52 stuff was really bad. Yeah, I don't really think they've figured out the best way to tell his story. And I think that's why you see these constant changes, is because it's hard to fit that, like, you know, cookie cutter, like, you know, idealistic 50s American, you know, superhero into the world today. And
right, you can't. And it's
an ongoing struggle to figure that out.
Yeah, and it's a different demographic than it is now than it is back then. I mean, you're a kid in the 50s, and you know you don't have what you have going on in today's world, and it's a little different, and you can't fit this goody two character in today's world. It just doesn't work. You're going to have to, you know, to make it work. You know, my ideal is, you know, maybe Superman needs to start killing somebody, like, you know, just wiping people out. I don't know, you know, that because that's what today's society is. You know, it's all about taking out different people and, you know, working the angles. And I know he doesn't do that. He's a good American, all American, everything else. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up, and I think there's probably a lot of people that are on board with this idea. All right, I think we'll probably go into the last one at this point, right?
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is coming from a positive perspective where everyone else is negative. I think William Shatner is a lot better actor than people give him credit for. I already said it.
I can't say anything on that. So,
yes, his Star Trek stuff was a little. He has a very delayed speech when he does stuff, but I don't know if you guys have ever watched any Boston Legal, that series where he's a lawyer. He's phenomenal in that. Him and James Spader are like awesome in it. But I mean, I've always liked him. I always think he's gotten a lot of unnecessary flack, and I've always enjoyed him. I feel like he was a very charismatic captain on Star Trek. And this is just because I was trying to balance out all the different, you know, topics. I didn't want to keep it to comic books. That's why I went from Star Wars to comics to Star Trek. But listen, hey, I'm sure a lot of people hate on William Shatner. I'm in that guy's corner.
I got nothing to say about him.
Now, he may not be a great human being. I'm just talking about him from an acting perspective. All right. I don't know what happened with his wife in the pool. All right. That's all I'm going to say.
All right.
Actor, I don't think he's that bad. I'm just going to let you guys know I have a ton more for next time.
All right, next time.
Yeah. But I think that was good. I hope people enjoyed this. I feel like people always like debatable topics.
Yeah. No, that was a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, I think this would be a fun segment for going forward.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have anything else to wrap up for?
Nope.
Yeah,
we're not going to be making any appearances.
Yeah, we're all just going to be home.
Still home.
Until the next time that we go into our chairs and record
We're
something.
sharing. So I'm not sure what format we're going to do it. So there has been a ton of stuff we've been getting. And when we say we, I'll just be honest and say I've been getting during this Remedy tour. I think I'm going to try doing a live. And then from there, I think we can push it to IGTV.
Like a live unboxing?
Yeah. Well, we'll see how much I got. I don't know. Maybe I'll wait to get all of them and do like one like that.
Like a Portnoy style package opening?
Yeah. That's the closest I'm going to get, like 3 boxes. But yeah, so that'll be something cool.
We should send him a comic book and see what he does with it.
Oh, God. I don't even want to. It would hurt my heart to see him ruin a comic book. Yeah, but no, I think that's really all I have. I mean, we're getting involved where we can. Hopefully, we don't know when there's going to shows and stuff we're going to start. We would like getting into it. I'm going through my books. At some point, we might, on the at Long Island Comic Book Guys side, maybe we'll start putting some books up for sale because there is some stuff we're looking to move. But again, I don't want to give you guys a timeline, but just maybe if you want to keep your eyes open on the at LA Comic Guys.
Cool.
But that's it for me.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, what do? We say until next time, remember...
Don't be the geeks!